Hello and welcome to Evelyn Reports Women's Sports. Today I'm going to talk about the truth about the TNT French Open coverage. I'm going to talk about some positives and then I'm going to unfortunately have to talk about some negatives in the coverage. So let's go ahead and talk about the positives. They do have three channels and they do have really nice graphics. And if you're a doubles player, like most players in the league, then this is a real boon because the tennis channel is really covering the doubles. And if you're into that, you're going to see a lot of pros playing and get to see their strategies. I have a subscription to the tennis channel, and so I'm very familiar with all these dependable commentators like Lindsay Davenport and Coco Vandeweghe and Jim Courier. They've even brought in Sloane Stevens and several others from those desks. So that's really nice. I have to admit, my favorite commentator is back, and that is Chris Evert, probably my favorite tennis player of all time, even though I have a one-handed backhand. She retired from tennis in 1989 and started commentating not too not too far after that. So one of the things that was really great about it is she would give wonderful insight into the various players because she had played against them. And she also would give a lot of really, really, really good advice that league players could use. She would say things like, oh, well, you've had a double fault or you're not feeling confident, then hit a 3/4 quarter spin serve. I mean, who says 3/4 quarter spin serve other than Chris Evert? And it's obviously been successful because she's won 18 Grand Slams. She'd also say things like, "Hey, if you're nervous, just move your feet." That's elementary, but she's right. You stop moving when you're playing and when you're nervous. And she also would give really good technical advice that I try to listen to whenever I do this, whenever I do go to the net. Make sure your approach is down the line. I don't know how many times I see this, especially in the women's game, when they get a short ball, because most of them, or all of them just about, have a two-handed backhand, so they just slam it across the court and get passed down the line. And I love it when I hear Chris Evert say, oh, you should have hit the approach shot down the line. She doesn't give as much technical advice like that as she used to. I'm not sure why, maybe because she doesn't know the players as much. She does have her academy, so she knows what she's talking about. She can give good advice. Nowadays, she does talk a little bit about things like, well, this player's feeling confident and this player's not confident. Maybe they need to work on getting their confidence. It doesn't matter to me, though. I love listening to Chris Evert and can never really get tired of listening to her. So I'm glad that they have gotten her involved in this French Open. Her wisdom is always appreciated. All right, let's talk about some of the negatives. You cannot be serious. They have this contraption called the Mac Zone, and it is John McEnroe and his brother Patrick McEnroe. And between the two, I very much more enjoy listening to the smooth and pleasing voice of Patrick McEnroe much more than I do the not so much pleasing voice of John McEnroe. This is, they sit at a booth and they talk. And why is that a problem? Well, let's talk about what they talk about and how much we have seen them as opposed to actually watching tennis. So a couple of days ago, I was watching, obviously on, I think it was either True or TNT, and they came on. The Mac Zone got its advertisement to come on, and what did they do? They talked for, it seemed like, half an hour about the New York Knicks basketball game the night before. And it wasn't just a passing, oh, I sure am glad the Knicks won. No, it was nearly a half an hour analysis of that game. They went into, and how do I know this? Because I had to listen to it. Apparently, in the Eastern Conference basketball championships, the home teams have not been faring well and the away teams have been winning. I also was treated to, or we were all treated to, the travails of what it's like to be a Knicks fan. Then it progressed into what it was like to be a New York Mets baseball fan. And they just went into their fandom talk for, it seemed like, half an hour. Meanwhile, could you tell me how the Naomi Osaka and Paula Badosa match is going while you're talking about the basketball game? And I know that TNT is also the network for the basketball game, but can you imagine turning on the basketball game and being treated to a half-hour analysis of the French Open tennis? Can you imagine the commentators? Can you imagine whoever they have, maybe Doris Burke? I don't know if she's on that one or maybe on ESPN. But can you imagine them discussing for half an hour, well, what do you think of Yannick Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz and what their head-to-head is in their last match at the Italian Open? Or what about Jasmine Paolini, her win at the Italian Open? Do you think that'll be a springboard to win the French Open? No, I cannot imagine a near half-hour discussion during a basketball playoff game on the French Open. I can imagine them giving a advertisement to it, but no in-depth analysis. It gets worse. I have learned that they have another brother, and I've learned this because they show a picture of them as children with their brother, and of course Patrick's the cutest of them, and it's a nice cute picture, but they brought their brother in. Now remember, tennis matches are going on. This is this is like the second round, so you got matches all over the place, but we've halted that for the MAC zone. And their brother has been brought on in a Zoom call. They're at their booth in Paris, and I'm not exactly sure where their brother Paul is. He's a nice gentleman. But they proceeded to have what was the experience was like maybe I was at a family reunion or at the Thanksgiving dinner table with them as they reminisced about their childhood. That is just simply not appropriate for the tennis channel. And by the way, how's it going over there in the Spitolina match? In between learning that Paul was a walk-on at Stanford and that he's a successful lawyer and why he never made it as a professional. And they had these surveys of which brother is known for which value and so forth. It got to be a little bit cringeworthy at the end of it. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is totally not appropriate. Again, can you please tell me how the Spitolina match is going? So I'm watching some tennis matches and today, and so I see the Tommy Paul match. And I think, oh, well, this looks like it's going to be a pretty long match. And then I turn over to the True because I thought, oh, okay, well, there's got to be a women's match on that. I got to be catching up on all these other matches. And guess what's on it? The Tommy Paul match, the exact same match on the TNT channel. But this time, it's the MAC Zone covering it. So I have the little bitty match over in the corner in the big MAC Zone, and they're talking on and on. The same match going on both of their channels, and one of them has the MAC Zone doing the coverage of it. This is just not appropriate. And I say this as heartfelt and not to be mean, but please jettison the MAC Zone. You can keep Patrick. He's wonderful. You can keep him as a commentator. And I don't want to be mean to John McEnroe, but you could put him out on court 14, and that would be fine. Just occasional coverage of him. But please jettison the MAC Zone. Okay, I do have another question. Is there a women's side of the draw? It has been absolutely abysmal. And I want to talk about one match in particular, and it was the Taylor Fritz match from a couple of days ago. I saw he was playing, and I thought, well, It looks like Taylor's in a little bit of trouble, but I gotta find that Naomi Osaka Paula Badosa match because this is a big popcorn match. I turned over and guess what was playing? You guessed it, Taylor Fritz. But don't worry, they had the Mac Zone also covering that. So the best match of the day, I'm not gonna say it's the best match, was one that I was really looking forward to, where I saw bits and pieces of it in between showing Taylor Fritz on two channels and the Mac Zone. I just saw bits and pieces of that match. So it's been very disappointing. They do have a night match, which is very isolated, one match. And so far, it's only been men's matches. They've been mostly just men's matches. I instituted this in 2022. There have been only maybe a couple women's matches. I'm hoping next week they do bring in more women's matches for us to watch. We have a lot of channels. We should be seeing a lot more women's matches. I do understand why they may have some apprehension. The early round women's matches sometimes aren't so good, especially like Aniga Swiatek match where she puts you through the bakery and gives you a bagel and a breadstick. So it's probably not always the best to have their matches trying to sell tickets, and some of those matches can be blowouts versus a good on feast match where you may get a 5-setter. So I do understand that, but please, moving forward, especially next week, once it gets down to the nitty gritty, please start putting some women's matches on. And just get it together. Show more tennis. I want to see Sabalenka. I want to see the top ranked players. I want to see more tennis. I want to hear less and see less commentators. They have that booth and they seem like they're interchanging. They have so many people, they're just trying to bring them all in for an interview. If I hear one more interview with Carlos Alcaraz, I don't know how many interviews he's had already today. He's got to be tired from all the interviews he's had. Kudos to him for doing them, but I'd like to see some other players, and in addition, I'd rather see more tennis. I know that I ranted a little bit on this, but truly the Mac Zone, it deserved for me to have a good old fashioned John McEnroe fit about that. Please, again, jettison that. So I will be having better commentaries about the play, hopefully, if I can see some of it coming forward in the next few days. Please, I know that was a little bit negative on some of the things that have been going on, but I felt like they really need to be discussed. Please, if you like this, please click like, please subscribe, and I hope that you come back to my channel.